Bitcoin is continuing to show signs of life, bouncing after the drop below 29,000, while nation states continue to look towards more Bitcoin adoption. Today I'm talking about Paraguay, not El Salvador. There is so much news and so much to look at in these charts. Stay with me and we're going to do it all right now. Let's go. What is up, everybody? I'm Scott Melker, also known as the Wolf of Wall Streets. Before we get started, please go ahead and hit the subscribe button and like the video right down below. That's that little thumbs up that you see there. Now, like I said, Bitcoin was showing a bit of weakness this morning, but now is showing some follow through after the bounce. Really encouraging to see, but very much too early to celebrate for now. There's also a ton of news, including the fact that Paraguay is now proposing to accept Bitcoin as legal tender, much like El Salvador, with the dominoes falling in South and Central America. But first, we're going to take a very quick look at the Bitcoin chart before we dive into the news. As you can see here, we have the daily chart, which I also have analyzed over the past few days. We had that major drop 2 days ago that broke support, but ended up miraculously closing back above that ascending blue line. If you use the top of this channel, you can see that that was a bit of a symmetrical triangle and it did hold support. But that drop using the wicks actually gave us a perfect descending channel, which statistically should break to the upside. Right now, price is struggling with the EQ of that descending channel. That's that dashed line, which is the 50% level of any channel. Assuming we can get a daily close above that, it's trying right now after wicking through yesterday, then we would expect a trip to the top of the channel. That's how we get back up to the 40,000 area where we'll find resistance with the 50 MA after the much discussed death cross and the top of this channel. But ultimately, we still need to get above 42,000 right here before discussing any real signs of bullishness. But there are signals that we like. As I discussed in previous videos, we had a beautiful bullish divergence on the daily chart, which is still in play. Drilling into the 4-hour chart here, you can see exactly what I'm talking about with the trading range. It's really this entire red area with some other lines of support and resistance within that area. We had this beautiful sweep of the lows, the swing failure pattern, SFP, that I discussed at length in the video that I put out just yesterday. So you should have seen that. We had this descending resistance, not that convincing. It looked like a retest, kind of broke below, but consolidated against, and now has sprung up using that as support. We should, with this sweep of the lows of the range, be easily targeting the EQ right around 36,000 of this range. A flip of that, then we start talking about 40,000, 42,000, 43,000, a trip to the top of the range. That's how this generally should work, but as you know, it doesn't always work that way, right? We broke above the EQ here, made a bit of moves, came down, up, never made it to the top of the range. So these are just ideas, but you can see Bitcoin held this area as support and both of this swing low and this swing low as support, even on the 4-hour chart. All of that price action and volume was on one 4-hour candle, but we do want to see an increase in volume here, more conviction in the buying. We want to see buyers and bulls really stepping in heavily. Right now, we have signals that could be a bottom, but we do not have signals that show that it is the bottom. We would need to break out of this range. And speaking of ranges, now, as we saw people talking about a Wyckoff distribution near the top and that 65K top being a fake out, sort of a bull trap, swinging a high above the recent all-time high, making a new all-time high and then crashing. That's very similar to what the 28,500 low actually looks like. So if that was Wyckoff distribution, we're looking more at something like a Wyckoff accumulation right now. Now, if you don't know about Wyckoff, here's a bit more information. Now, he was a technical analyst back in the 1880s, and he had the fortune of watching some of the best traders in history at that time, like James Keane, Jesse Livermore, Andrew Carnegie, JP Morgan, Jay Gould, among others. And doing that and looking at supply and demand and volume and price analysis, he basically started to study how these super traders worked and apply it to all markets. And that's where we get Wyckoff distribution and accumulation ideas from. So it's basically based on three concepts. You have the law of supply and demand, which we all know, the law of cause and effect. For the price of a stock or an asset to change, there has to be a cause and those have to be aligned. And then the law of effort versus results, which is really where you talk about volume analysis. How much volume did it take for price to move a certain amount, and are those things in agreement? That's when we talk about like price going up, but volume decreasing. Price and volume are not in agreement. That shows that buyers are likely wearing out and price is likely to drop. When price is dropping on lower volume, that looks more like accumulation, that sellers are losing energy and price is likely to go the other way. This is where a lot of these ideas come from. Well, let's take a look. Now, in this article, they look at the accumulation schematic 2 of Wyckoff events and phases. I like schematic 1 much better here, but you can see how this trading range forms and has all of these different phases. Let's take a look quickly at Wyckoff schematic 1. As you can see, this is the one that has a spring, which is the sweep of the lows that we just saw. So we're probably in phase C right now. A test back, as you saw, closing above those other swing lows and heading out. At that point, we can start talking about heading back up when we flip the range lows. That's around the LPS, which is last point of support. And then you start looking for this sign of strength, back up. They talk about this as jumping over the creek, another last point of support, and then you head out. So right now it looks like, if you believe in Wyckoff accumulation, that we are somewhere here in phase C, swept the lows, got that spring, are getting those tests and heading into the next phase. So there's a lot to be encouraged about here, but until you flip it out and you get this sign of strength and you're actually headed out of the range, there's nothing really to talk about. It is simply just an idea. Now on to arguably the biggest story of the day. Is Paraguay set to become the second country to make Bitcoin legal tender after El Salvador? We know that they're looking at this in places like Brazil, Panama, Argentina as well. Well, a Paraguayan politician has moved to put a bill before their government next month in July. One thing we know, it will not happen as fast as it did in El Salvador, where they were able to pass this 3 days after even mentioning it for the first time at the Bitcoin conference. And we know 24 hours after that, he was talking about mining from volcanoes. Paraguay will probably take a bit longer, but it does seem likely, apparently, that this will pass. The dominoes are falling, as I said, in Central and South America. There's so much to be excited for Bitcoin in places where it is really needed. And interesting, Paraguay is not on the dollar like El Salvador is. They have their own currency, the Guarani. I believe that's how you pronounce it, the Guarani. Is the Paraguayan currency, and they do not have terrible inflation at the moment, but they've seen what happens in countries surrounding them like Venezuela, Argentina, where hyperinflation becomes a major issue. Paraguay is getting ahead of that trend, looking to adopt Bitcoin as legal tender. Now, a very sad story that everyone's talking about. McAfee found dead in Spanish prison as extradition loomed. Autopsy planned. Apparently, John McAfee committed suicide. There's lots of conspiracy theories as to what may have happened. He said if he ever committed suicide that he was murdered. Then people say he was playing 3D chess, saying he intended to commit suicide. And so he was saying that in advance so that people would think that the government killed him. Well, no matter what happened, whether it was murder or suicide, I think we can all agree that John McAfee was a trailblazer, not only with McAfee antivirus and all of the software that he developed, but also in the cryptocurrency space, and just basically being a freedom-loving libertarian and a bit nuts and crazy, but a freedom lover who lived by his own standard and by his own rules. Not everybody can pull that off or do it, but he was an idol to many here, and he will be missed. Founders of South African crypto investment firm and $3.6 billion in Bitcoin are missing. This is such a sad story. AfriCrypt investors were told not to inform police of the purported hack because it could slow the recovery of their funds. Long story short, it's a 17-year-old and a 20-year-old who pulled this off, stealing $3.6 billion in Bitcoin. Effectively, they had an exchange. They said that it had been hacked. They told users not to report it while they moved all of the money out and disappeared. Hopefully, this money will be recovered. FTX signs Major League Baseball sponsor pact. Sam Bankman-Fried, what a giga chad. After doing a naming rights deal with Miami for the Miami Heat Arena, formerly known as American Airlines Arena for FTX, now they have become the official crypto sponsor of Major League Baseball. There'll be FTX patches on the umpires and all kinds of surprises coming forward. This is absolutely huge for mainstream adoption. A lot of people have pushed back and said that's not the right audience. But if you're marketing to the audience that already knows FTX, what's the point? This is marketing to the mainstream, to a wider audience. Everybody should be cheering this on. He's bringing crypto to the masses. And finally, an absolutely huge story. Andreessen Horowitz triples down on blockchain startups with massive $2.2 billion crypto fund. 3. It's clear the big money is still heavily interested in the crypto space and is doubling, tripling, and quadrupling down $2.2 billion fund to invest in picks and shovels in crypto infrastructure and companies. Guys, I know that price is down, but the value of Bitcoin, the commitment to this space by countries and companies has never been stronger. This is the time to start investing for your future. Zoom out. Take a long-term view on Bitcoin and do not worry. As I said in a tweet today, the only thing that has changed is the price. Nothing has fundamentally changed. Guys, that is it for today. Thank you for watching and for listening. Please check out my newsletter down in the description. I will be live streaming tomorrow at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Until then, peace.